What they really are looking for in these types of cases is that you understand me, that you trust me, that you're not judging me, and that you have the solution I want. I encourage people to make sure they have a really good subprime financing option when they're doing this type of thing. Most people who need this work are not falling in your highest credit scores. That's just the reality. So you have to have a way to work with them. So there's a weird propensity that I see, like holding on to like 90s style care credit interest-free financing. Like you offering a person 12 equally unaffordable interest-free payments doesn't solve their problem at all, right?
Welcome to another episode of the Full Arch Advantage podcast. I'm your host, Gary Bird. I'm the CEO of SMC National, where we help you have predictable new patient flow for offices just like yours. And today I got the privilege to interview Genevieve Poppe, and she has a great take and a lot of experience on how to get more people to say yes in your office. And I promise you, she's going to share some things with you you've never heard before, things that you haven't really thought of before. So stay tuned. All right, Genevieve. So could you tell me what you see as the biggest obstacles holding people back from being successful and getting more full arch cases into their office?
Yeah, there's a couple things that I see just really commonly happening in full arch cases, especially in offices that are doing this as sort of just part of their service mix, not their entire practice, right? Where they're trying to incorporate this into a general practice. First, clinically, I tend to watch a lot of overwhelm, over-explanation, or in dentistry, we like to call it education. And while there are a certain segment of patients that I think find that interesting, I don't see that work very well in the full arch space. Most of these patients have gotten to the point of needing this type of restoration for a lot of neglect. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of issues with it. And they're typically not the type of patients that want a big education or want a lot of detail or want a lot of options. They want you to hear their story and they want a simple solution, right? So I could dive into that very deeply.
Yeah,
but
let's
I've
dive into that. You said it's overwhelm versus what? What was the other one?
It's overwhelm or sort of over education of these
Got
patients, believing that, it's information
let's talk about
and
that, because
options.
if I was selling, $100,000 case and I was sitting in the office, I would think a big part of what I would need to do is educate them on what's going on, because it is a big buying decision. So where's that disconnect? Where are people getting that wrong?
Right. Well, it starts with just kind of the beginning, and that we start from the place of being the experts and wanting to explain all of the things we can do, all of the reasons why we're the best person for doing it. And really, where I watch this be way more successful is to sit down and let a person talk about themselves, right? Let them tell you their story, let them talk about all of the things that got them there, understand what they want to accomplish, and then assure them that you can do that. Instead, what we do is, a lot of people that do this type of dentistry are technically really amazing clinicians, and they have a lot of tools in their belt, and they're dorks. They like to talk about it, right? Like that's the stuff that excites them. But the patients who need this work are not excited about that stuff. They're excited about the end game, the solution. They actually want the simplest explanation. They want you to tell them what they should do and assure them that we can get the result that they want. So sometimes I'll see people get really deep into options or deep into explanation of components and different types of implant pieces and corrections. And it's just way too much. And I watch people on the patient side just completely shut down or completely freak out. Like the fear and overwhelm sets in. Yeah. And it isn't that they showed up for that consult not wanting a solution. It's just that the thing that's held them back for all these years has just been reaffirmed for them, that this is hard, this is, scary, that this is expensive. And it is all those things, but that isn't how we want to make them feel.
So what I've learned, sorry to disrupt the show, but I just have a quick commercial for you. We are going to be hosting 4 events over the next 12 months, and we're doing a little bit of everything for everybody. We have something around full arch. We have something for those that manage marketing. We have something for those that want to scale their practice at Dykema. And then also we have something next year that's for everybody in your practice to learn business skills and to really maximize the opportunities for you to grow your offices. You're not going to want to miss these. Visit smcnational.com smcnational.com/events. These are going to be the premier events that you're going to want to go to make sure that you're getting the tactical skills that you need to continue to grow the way that you want. Because at SMC, we're all about growing. In the marketing industry is that marketing is a very broad term, right? So
Yes.
I can say marketing. You might think of something, I might think of something totally different. Everybody might have a different definition of what that is. So to successfully sell marketing services, we had to productize it, which means it's like, hey, we're giving you this thing that's going to do this result. And it's way more complicated than that, but we had to simplify it because dentists aren't going to go out and learn every nook and cranny of all the different marketing stuff. They're dentists. And so is that what has to happen in these offices, is you kind of have to productize that end result for the patient, or is there another way that you're thinking about it?
No, that's actually it's a good parallel. It's very similar to that. And that if you can understand what a person wants and you can simply say, hey, yeah, we can get rid of all these teeth that are bothering you and we can put some in there that won't come out, that will stay in there, that'll get what you want done. They're going to look great and feel great. Let's figure out how we work that in your budget. That's just a totally different feeling than where I watch some people go, which is explaining all of the steps of it, explaining layers of options of it, and what all of those differences are. A lot of times you don't even have to go into those options if you understand a person's budget and their desires at the beginning. I guess.
And I know, and as a skilled person, right? And I know you're a skilled person. Dentists are skilled people. We have our skill sets that we have all this information. Sometimes it can feel like we're cheapening what we do by just doing this one thing and simplifying. And what I had to kind of train myself on is no. This is what's making it consumable to the people that need it.
Right. If you want to deliver all of this expertise, right, you have all of that skill and that knowledge in your pocket, and there's the occasional person who wants more of it. But we lead with it. I think in our own insecurity, like we're all comfortable talking about the stuff we know about. And for a lot of clinicians, that's like, where they live in their expertise, and they think that they're building confidence in patients, and to some extent they are, but patients already sort of assume your competence when they come in that door. And I know
because you're a doctor. You went to school for a long time.
What they really are looking for in these types of cases is that you understand me, that you trust me, that you're not judging me, and that you have the solution I want. And I know that takes some of the exciting part of it off the table sometimes. But people can come around and want to know more along the way. I just think we way overdo it in a lot of cases in that first consultation.
Got it. And one of the things you said in there is one of the big takeaways is, how much is it going to cost me? Whether that's the total amount or the financing. Where, and I know this is all changing as we speak. I keep getting sideswiped by other companies that are like, no, we do this now. So where are we at in the current state of like financing when it comes to full arch?
Oh, well, I mean, there's a lot of solutions out there, right? I encourage people to, one, have money conversations early, right? There's no sense in building $100 treatment plan or $100,000 treatment plan if this patient wants church teeth, right? And that's okay. Some people, that's their starting point. But I watch people put in a lot of time and energy that doesn't even need to happen if we haven't had a budget conversation kind of early in the conversation.
How early? Like where are you seeing that? Because I've seen people who qualify in the marketing before it even gets to the office.
Yeah.
Those are more like the full arch people
like
who that like surgery centers. Yeah, that's all they do.
Right.
And then I've seen dental offices that wait until the person's in the chair and already done a lot of the legwork and the consultation and those kind of things.
For me, in an ideal world with a skilled person or people to do it, I actually like a ballpark conversation on the first phone call. If we can, you have to do that right, of course. And you have to have people with a certain amount of knowledge in the actual restorative side, fielding those calls to understand what a patient's translation of their situation is. So that's like perfect world. But if you really want to do a lot of them, having a good person to field those phone calls and getting people mentally resourceful around money before they see the doctor is really valuable. But if you don't have that, some of the most successful like prosthodontists and pros guys I know have been amazing at saying, hey, have you thought about a budget for this? Right? Like right at the beginning, because there's no sense in building, the perfect, study club case for this person if what they have to work with is $10,000. It doesn't mean we
Yeah.
can't do something for them or start
Yep.
somewhere for them. Or sometimes that actually opens up into a better conversation. Like, well, some people come in and they'll say, well, I was thinking $5,000. Their planet of reality is just, it's not even there. But you can say, well, do you think you could do $5,000 a year for a few years? Like you can get people resourceful. But a lot of docs just really shy away from that, thinking that if they just educate people to want this perfect outcome, that if we just educate them, that then they'll do it. It's the facts that will get them there. But I think if you can get money on the table early, you're actually doing the patient a great service to get comfortable with it as they go along. But also you're doing yourself a service to not, take models and do a wax up and, build this whole perfect case that you're going to bring them back and present later only to blow them out of the water and be disappointed about it.
Yeah, that's a great point, because dentistry is not like other industries. Like minivans are like $80,000 now, and everybody's like saying, yeah, this is how much a minivan costs, right? And we kind of understand that. But no one ever walks into the dental office and goes, oh, that's very reasonable, ever, for any service, right? It's always like, wait, that's like 10
Nobody
times
said,
more.
Oh, that's about what I had in mind. That's about what I was thinking. That rarely happens unless somebody's really done their research or they've had another consultation. The other end of that on the financing thing is that there's tons of financing options out there now. And I encourage people to make sure they have a really good subprime financing option when they're doing this type of thing. Most people who need this work are not falling in your highest credit scores. That's just the reality. So you have to have a way to work with them. The other
That's a good point. That's a really good point. So the lower credit scores are in relation to poor maintenance on their teeth, and then they need to work more. Is that the correlation there?
There's a lot of correlation between low income, lack of access, lack of being raised with a certain prioritization for that type of thing. Most people, if they had money freely flowing, would have visited the dentist more regularly along the way, right? And so by the time they get to this point, there are some people who've just reached a certain age and they have the money, but that's not the majority of them. The other thing is similar to buying a minivan that I really encourage teams to do is to talk about payments. So there's a weird propensity that I see, like holding on to like 90s style care credit, interest-free financing. Like you offering a person 12 equally unaffordable interest-free payments doesn't solve their problem at all, right? And at this point, they don't care about the interest. They care about it being affordable. So I'm saying give them the lowest payment you can possibly give them. When people go to buy an $80,000 minivan, they don't say my budget's $80,000. They say I need a payment under $500.
Yeah, that's a great point, because the car industry's really figured that out too, because it wasn't always that way. Cars used to be, I would talk to my dad and he was like, when I was a kid, I got a car for $4,000. I paid cash for it. And I was like, oh, cool. That's awesome. Like you can't buy a car now for that much, but that's cool that you're able to do that. And now the car industry's totally changed everybody's thinking. Every budgeting tool that you have, it's like what percentage of your budget should go towards a car payment. Like they've done a really good job. The dental industry hasn't really done that yet. We don't think of that way. Probably the closest would be ortho, because they do a lot of in-house financing, but the rest of dental has that's not even on the table.
Even though they're offering payment options more, I just don't see them presenting it in more of a consumer friendly way. And I think, they don't, a lot of dentists listening to this won't really appreciate the car dealer comparison, but we are talking about something that costs as much as a car. Right. And so most people can't afford to pay that in 12 payments.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to, and this is the tricky part, and I haven't been able to figure this out. I've asked a lot of knowledgeable people, what is the addressable market that we're actually talking about here that can afford this? No one really knows, right? Like, so it's just like, everybody's like, well, we're still kind of filling this out. If we know anything, if you look at the dental side of things, the GP side, you have about 50% of the total population goes to the dentist roughly, right? So, okay, we have that. And then you have ortho. Out of everybody who needs ortho, I think it's like 1% end up getting it or something like that. So it's like way underutilized. And then this whole specialty all on four, that market's still forming. There's still a lot of education going into it. So there's opportunity there, but you have to be equipped to open up those opportunities that normally, like 5 years ago, you would have just said no to. So are you, how do you recommend that you have that conversation about the finances when the person, so you've already felt them out and they already know it's going to be $50,000 or it's going to be, $500 a month or something like that. How are
Mm-hmm.
you, when you're bringing in the third party lender, how are you handling that part?
Yeah, I guess it's depends on the office and what they have available. I have some practices that I've worked with in this space that actually will work with like a local bank or two to get like a kind of like a preset lending
Ah,
arrangement for their
yeah,
patients, which I think is really smart. Um, saying we have people who fall in this category, and they'll kind of work that out. I think here's what I think. This is a generic answer to this, but I think the big place I watch this fall apart around money is that our dental teams are so uncomfortable with the idea that people can't afford this, that they cannot stay in the conversation that's so uncomfortable to help them find a solution. Like my overarching advice for it is to start having how conversations, like how can we do this? Not let's see, here's the number, like let me know if you're going to do it. And most of the
yeah,
time I watch them sort of land it at the end and then they hand them 5 brochures of resources and they sort of say, let us know if.
yeah,
Whereas if you can sit there and say, well, let's see, you have this much and maybe that available to you in a home equity loan, and you have, maybe this much that we could do through our lending partner, and do you think you could come up with this much? And just like
yeah,
actually sitting in the discomfort of this is,
and figuring it
I
out
know it
with them.
seems pushy, and some people will say it's forward, but these are patients who really need care. Like they really don't have choices.
Yeah,
And so if you can be the human that helps them figure out how, you're not pushing it, you're not selling it. To me, it's genuinely helping
yeah.
people do it.
And this is a gap in the medical insurance world, right? And I know people are
Yeah,
trying to figure that out, but it's not, we're not talking about like, oh, I just have to straighten one of my teeth here. We're talking about being able to eat
right.
or things like that, like really crucial things. And to your point about like having the ability to have that conversation, it's so important. It's like I related to, going back to cars. If you
Hmm.
sold Hondas and I was
Hmm.
a Honda salesman, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I like Hondas, I can afford Hondas. But then I try to go over and sell yachts. I'm going to be like, man, is anybody, people are going to spend $10 million on a yacht? And I
Right.
project that no one can afford a yacht because I can't afford it,
Correct.
or I don't understand why people would waste their money on that or something like that. I'm projecting that. I'll never
Right.
sell a yacht. Like no one's ever going to buy one from me because I'm projecting that. And I've seen teams do that where they are
Mhm.
projecting that, oh, this is too much money. You're not going to want to buy it because I wouldn't buy it. And it's
Well,
just the
yeah.
wrong approach because they don't need all on four. The patient, the team member doesn't need it. So
Right.
it's like you have to take yourself out of your shoes and put yourself in the patient's shoes.
Yeah, I completely agree. I watch people really psych themselves out about this. And I tell people all the time, I coach a lot on verbiage and approach, and I do a lot of training on this stuff. But I also start all of that training by telling people the reason I think I'm good at it is that I totally believe people are going to do it. Like that's 95% of the battle is that I don't think somebody came into the office to get our opinion in a treatment plan to get fixed up, not wanting to do it. Right. They came in hoping to find a way to do this. And so I just sort of adopt this belief that it's my mission to help them figure out how, even
Yeah,
if that's uncomfortable for both of us.
that's really good.
And
I
if
I
you've
love that.
ever done it, if you've ever had success with it, or even if you've ever had any level of dental need, I grew up as a kid with really bad teeth. And going into the dental industry, I felt very self-conscious of the fact that I had stainless steel crowns from when I was a kid. And it wasn't even a very visible thing, but I genuinely felt really bad about myself for it, like embarrassed, like maybe I shouldn't even be in this industry, embarrassed about it.
Wow.
And so I guess I can come from this place of real empathy for how badly you can feel about yourself when you feel like you haven't had that taken care of, even if it's not super visible. And, a lot of people in dentistry today have like never even had a filling. They don't have any reference for that unless they've seen the impact it makes on people.
Yeah.
Um, but even then, a lot of the people that we're failing to help are the people that need it the most,
Yep.
who need a real solution. Um,
Mm.
And sometimes those cases too, it's what I tell the doctors, sometimes those cases get started at an interim step. Sometimes they're not ready
What
for
do you
that.
mean? What do you mean by that? Help me understand what that
I
means.
mean, sometimes you can really help a person out by making them a denture, even though you don't like to do that step, even though you think dentures suck, right? Like all
Yeah.
of that stuff.
Yeah. I heard a
And we,
dentist one time say to me, and this was really hit me hard. He said, yeah, this person might need a ton of perio and
mhm,
I recommend it, but they don't have the money for it and they don't have the
mhm,
time or whatever. And so I will just say, fine, do a normal cleaning on them. It's not going to get the job done, but it's also not going to hurt anything, right?
exactly.
It's not going to break anything, and it's going to make them
Mhm,
feel a little bit better. And it's a
yep,
step in the right direction. It's not the best step. It's not what we'd recommend. It's not the ideal situation. And hearing a
yes.
dentist say that, and I actually asked him, I said, why are you saying this? He was like, because most dentists don't think this way.
Correct. Most dentists will say you have to leave our practice if you're not going to do this thing my way and they get attached to their version of perfect. And sometimes a person has to try a denture to realize that it's not a tenable long-term solution for them. And sometimes
Mm,
actually just getting the teeth that are hurting them and causing them pain out of their head and something that they can go to the store with actually is really helping them, even
yeah,
though it's not your version of perfect.
yeah,
And so I just feel like we take on a high responsibility in caring for people if you really want to be in the full arch space. And a lot of people you're going to see might not be ready for your perfect solution today, but if you can help them now, they might get ready
yeah.
over
And even
time.
if you don't want to do that treatment, you can always refer it, right? Like you could figure out a
Right.
way to get that treatment to someone else and say, hey, we're probably not the best fit because this is all we do, but you here's some other options, and
Mhm.
we'll gladly refer you over there. And there's people that would be happy to
Yes,
help those people in in every market, almost, I would imagine.
absolutely. You can almost, and they'll send you the stuff when most of the people who will do that are not
Yeah,
ready to do the thing you do. It can be very symbiotic, but I just think we get hung up in a lot of perfect outcomes and like we want to do
mm,
it a certain way from the beginning, and not everybody who needs that type of care is going to be able to do it out of the gate. It doesn't mean they won't be able to do it ever.
got it. Okay, last question
Mhm.
for you. So
Yeah.
how who have you seen that does the best at getting people to say yes at to full arch? Has it been dentist? Has it been the dental assistant, the treatment coordinator, or is it more of like a team effort from your perspective?
I have worked with a couple of dentists that were really incredible at it, that single-handedly. That they were sort of a one-man shop. Uh, both of them, their single biggest commonality was their comfort in talking about money right away. Just super easy. Just like both of them would have the same posture, like they kind of cross their arms and lean back, and they just say, Gary, have you thought about a budget for this? What are you thinking? We could come up with a plan that'd be like a used car or a plan that'd be like a Mercedes. Where are you landing? And they just have these very normal conversations. It wasn't weird or awkward.
Yeah,
And
most dentists don't want to talk about money, right? Like I would
yeah,
say the
they're
vast majority
so
don't.
uncomfortable.
Yeah,
And if you can't get comfortable, I've seen treatment coordinators who are really good at it. Um, Kind of long answer. I feel very commonly, especially if you're kind of running out of a general GP office, a lot of times the person who is your treatment coordinator in that office is not the ideal treatment coordinator for this kind of case.
yeah,
They're used to explaining insurance benefits and estimated portions and being detailed about that stuff. And the treatment coordinators that I see do the best at this, secondary to doctors who are amazing at that, are your best assistant who you don't want to give up.
yeah, yeah,
So a lot of times if
yeah.
I'm
Because
in an
they're there,
office,
right? They're
I
there
will,
with
I
you.
will,
They
that
get
person
it.
is in your office. You don't want to give her up because, she's like indispensable chairside, but that's who you need to put on it in a lot of cases.
Mm, that's a really great point. If someone wants to reach out to you and learn more about what you do and how you help offices, because I know you help offices in a lot of different ways,
Sure.
what's the best way to connect with you?
Well, I'm pretty much the only Genevieve Poppe around on on Facebook.
Sure.
My website is Poppe Practice Management, POPPE, practicemanagement.com. You can schedule a call with me right from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been very insightful, and I love your perspective on these things.